Imagine stumbling upon two lifeless bodies at dawn, their clothes carefully draped over them, yet no clear signs of violence or struggle. What could cause such a haunting scene? Today, we unravel the chilling mystery of Dr. Gilbert Bogle and Margaret Chandler, two brilliant lives cut short in a case that has left investigators baffled for decades. Welcome to Crime Pulse Stories, where we explore the most perplexing and haunting cases from around the world. Today, we dive into one of Australia's most enduring mysteries, the mysterious deaths of Dr. Gilbert Bogle and Margaret Chandler in the early hours of New Year's Day, 1963. As we uncover the strange details and eerie theories surrounding their untimely demise, stay with us. This is a case you won't forget. It was the morning of New Year's Day in 1963 when a passerby made a startling discovery along the tranquil Lane Cove River in Sydney. The bodies of Dr. Gilbert Bogle, a renowned physicist, and Margaret Chandler, the wife of one of Bogle's colleagues, lay side by side in a secluded area. Both were partially undressed, but their clothing had not been discarded. It was neatly placed over them as if someone had taken care to preserve their modesty. A piece of carpet covered Bogle's body, while Chandler's was partially shielded with cardboard. The eerie precision of this arrangement immediately cast a shadow of suspicion over the scene. The area, usually peaceful, now teemed with police and onlookers. As investigators arrived, they couldn't have predicted the strange web of unanswered questions. This case would weave a web that remains unsolved to this day. Dr. Gilbert Bogle was no ordinary man. He was a brilliant physicist, celebrated for his groundbreaking work at the Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organisation, or CSIRO, one of Australia's most prestigious scientific institutions. Known for his intellect and charm, Bogle moved effortlessly between the world of academia and social circles. But beneath his polished exterior lay a personal life that was anything but conventional. Margaret Chandler was equally intriguing. She was married to Geoffrey Chandler, a colleague of Bogle's at CSIRO. A lively and social woman, Margaret was known for her elegance and wit, often captivating those around her. But her marriage to Geoffrey was far from traditional. Reports later revealed that their relationship was open, a detail that would later complicate the investigation into her death. The connection between Bogle and Margaret wasn't just professional, it was personal. The two were romantically involved, a relationship that both had kept discreet, but which was far from a secret within their social circles. Their affair added a layer of complexity to the case, intertwining workplace politics, personal entanglements, and questions of jealousy and betrayal. As investigators dug deeper into their lives, it became clear that this was no ordinary mystery. The victims were not strangers whose paths had crossed by chance. They were connected by a delicate web of relationships, secrets, and desires. But were these personal ties the motive for their deaths, or were they mere distractions from the real cause? The answers, as we'll see, were anything but straightforward. It was New Year's Eve, the final day of the year, a night of celebration, resolutions, and champagne-filled gatherings. Dr. Gilbert Bogle and Geoffrey Chandler, along with Geoffrey's wife Margaret, attended a party at a house in Chatswood, a quiet suburb of Sydney. The atmosphere was lively, with laughter and music filling the air as friends and colleagues welcomed the arrival of a new year. But behind the jovial facade, subtle tensions brewed. Dr. Bogle and Margaret's interactions at the party didn't go unnoticed by those in attendance. While Geoffrey Chandler appeared calm, perhaps a reflection of their unconventional marriage, other guests couldn't help but noticed the lingering glances and closeness between Bogle and Margaret. As the celebrations continued into the early hours, Dr. Bogle and Margaret left the party together. Their destination, an isolated area near the Lane Cove River. What led them to that secluded spot and what transpired next remains one of the case's most haunting mysteries. The scene along the Lane Cove River was as unsettling as it was perplexing. Dr. Gilbert Bogle and Margaret Chandler's bodies were discovered in a secluded area, lying just meters apart. Both were in a state of undress, but their clothing hadn't been discarded carelessly. Instead, it had been carefully draped over their bodies, as if someone had gone to great lengths to preserve their dignity. There were no signs of a struggle. The ground around them was undisturbed, with no evidence of a fight or a hurried escape. Their personal belongings, including wallets and jewelry, were untouched. Nothing seemed to have been stolen, ruling out robbery as a motive. The bodies showed no visible injuries, no cuts, bruises, or marks that could indicate a violent attack. Even more baffling, their faces were calm, almost peaceful, as if they had simply fallen asleep and never awakened. This eerie combination of clues left investigators scratching their heads. What could cause two seemingly healthy individuals to die so suddenly, without leaving any trace of trauma or disturbance? And why had someone taken the time to carefully cover their bodies after their deaths? Every element of the crime scene seemed deliberate, almost staged. But was it the work of someone who had witnessed their deaths and tried to shield them from shame? Or was it something far more sinister, a calculated act meant to mislead investigators? As the sun rose over the Lane Cove River, the shadows of doubt and mystery grew deeper. The answers seemed just out of reach, hidden beneath the layers of this meticulously crafted enigma. When the autopsies were performed, investigators expected answers, something to explain the sudden and simultaneous deaths of two seemingly healthy individuals. But instead, the findings deepened the mystery. There were no signs of external injuries, no bruises or abrasions, and no internal trauma. Toxicological tests were conducted, searching for traces of poison or substances that could have incapacitated them. Yet the results came back clean. No known toxins or chemicals were detected in their systems. The absence of definitive evidence left investigators puzzled. How could two people collapse and die together without leaving behind a single clear clue? Their bodies showed no signs of disease, no allergic reactions, and no abnormalities that could explain their deaths. Speculation swirled. Could they have been exposed to an undetectable poison? Had they fallen victim to some rare natural phenomenon? Or was the truth something far more sinister, hidden by a method so sophisticated that even science couldn't detect it? As each potential lead evaporated, frustration mounted. The bodies offered no secrets, no revelations. Instead, they presented an unsettling question. How could death leave so little behind? The lack of answers only added to the growing aura of unease surrounding the case. It was as if whatever had claimed their lives had vanished without a trace, leaving behind a puzzle with no edges to grasp. With no clear cause of death, the investigation shifted to theories, some plausible, others bordering on the bizarre. Speculation rippled through both the media and public, each idea attempting to make sense of the seemingly impossible. One early suggestion was accidental poisoning. Some believed the couple might have ingested a toxic substance, perhaps from food or drink consumed during their New Year's celebrations. But this theory clashed with the absence of any detectable poisons in their autopsies. Then came the darker hypotheses. Could this have been foul play? The meticulous way their bodies were covered hinted at the involvement of someone who had been at the scene. Was this an act of remorse or a calculated attempt to mislead investigators? Another theory was the possibility of a double suicide or even a lover's pact. The illicit nature of their relationship, combined with societal pressures of the time, led some to consider whether the couple had chosen to end their lives together. But the serene expressions on their faces and the absence of any evidence of a planned act made this difficult to prove. As the days passed, the theories multiplied. Whispers of jealousy, betrayal, and even revenge began to surface. Some wondered if Margaret's husband, Geoffrey Chandler, could have played a role, but his calm demeanor and cooperation with police seemed to cast doubt on his involvement. Each theory seemed to answer one question while opening the door to several more. Were these deaths the result of a tragic accident, a deliberate act, or something far more sinister lurking just beneath the surface? The lack of evidence only made the mystery more tantalizing, leaving investigators chasing shadows. Dr. Gilbert Bogle's death wasn't just a tragedy, it was a puzzle that raised questions far beyond personal relationships. As investigators delved into his professional life, an unsettling theory began to take shape. Could the Cold War's shadowy world of espionage have played a role? The early days of the Cold War were marked by relentless pursuit of scientific dominance. Bogle's work at the Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Research Organization placed him in a highly specialized field, one that might have made him a target for intelligence agencies. His expertise could have been of interest to both allies and adversaries, raising the possibility that his death wasn't a crime of passion or accident, but an act of covert silencing. The espionage theory gained traction as whispers of secret projects and international intrigue swirled around Bogle's name. Was he caught in a web of secrets too dangerous to escape? Had he been approached or threatened by agents seeking sensitive information? But for all its intrigue, this theory lacked concrete evidence. Investigators scoured his professional records, spoke to colleagues, and examined his correspondence. There were no signs of classified work, no hints of double dealing, and no connection to the murky world of international intelligence. Margaret Chandler's presence only deepened the mystery. She had no known ties to espionage, and her involvement seemed more likely to stem from personal matters than geopolitical machinations. While the idea of spies and covert operations captivated imaginations, it remained a theory built on speculation rather than facts. The Cold War backdrop added an air of paranoia, but as investigators searched for a smoking gun, none appeared. Still, the espionage angle lingered, a reminder of the era's pervasive suspicion and the lengths to which powers might go to protect their secrets. Was this a path worth exploring further, or a red herring in an already baffling case? The lack of answers left yet another unsettling gap in the story. As investigators probed deeper into the mystery, they turned their focus to the tangled web of personal relationships surrounding Dr. Gilbert Bogle and Margaret Chandler. It quickly became clear that their lives were far from conventional, adding a layer of intrigue and potential motive to the case. Margaret and her husband, Geoffrey Chandler, had what was described as an open marriage, an arrangement that was uncommon and controversial for the time. Margaret's relationship with Bogle was well known among their social circles, though it was discreet enough to avoid public scandal. Despite this arrangement, questions of jealousy and betrayal loomed large. Could someone close to them have felt spurned or humiliated enough to act on it? Dr. Bogle was equally enigmatic. Charismatic and sociable, he was known to have had multiple romantic relationships outside his marriage. While many described him as charming, his private life was a labyrinth of entanglements that investigators had to untangle. Could one of these relationships have taken a darker turn? As the Chandlers' unconventional arrangement came under scrutiny, Jeffrey Chandler's role was questioned. His calm demeanor and cooperation with authorities painted the picture of a man unbothered by his wife's affair. But was this composure genuine, or was he concealing deeper emotions? The love triangle, or perhaps love polygon, became a focal point of the investigation. Jealousy is a powerful motivator, and in such a tightly knit social group, secrets rarely stayed hidden for long. Yet, for all the potential drama, no evidence emerged to implicate anyone in their deaths. If passion or resentment had driven someone to act, they had left no trace. The lack of physical evidence only deepened the mystery, leaving investigators to wonder, were these personal entanglements a motive for murder, or simply a red herring in an already confounding case? Decades after the baffling deaths of Dr. Gilbert Bogle and Margaret Chandler, a new theory emerged that attempted to explain the unexplainable. In the mid 2000s, a documentary revisited the case, proposing a startling possibility. Could the couple have been victims of an invisible killer lurking in the natural environment? The theory centered on hydrogen sulfide gas, a highly toxic substance that can occur naturally in certain conditions. The Lane Cove River, where their bodies were discovered, was known for its polluted waters and decaying organic matter. In such environments, hydrogen sulfide gas can accumulate, often without warning. According to this hypothesis, the couple may have inadvertently wandered into a pocket of the gas while at the riverbank. Hydrogen sulfide, even in small amounts, can cause rapid unconsciousness and death. It's colorless, its odor resembling rotten eggs detectable only in lower concentrations. At higher levels, it becomes odorless, giving no warning before its deadly effects take hold. The idea was compelling. It explained the absence of external injuries, the lack of any detected poisons, and why their deaths appeared so sudden and peaceful. Perhaps, after collapsing, a third party had stumbled upon the scene and covered their bodies out of respect, leaving behind the hauntingly arranged tableau. But as plausible as the theory seemed, it raised its own questions. Why hadn't any other partygoers or locals reported similar symptoms in the area? Wouldn't traces of the gas or its effects have been detectable during the original investigation? And if this was truly a natural accident, how had no one else fallen victim to it before or since? The hydrogen sulfide theory offered a scientific explanation that, on the surface, fit many of the facts. Yet it remained speculative, as no direct evidence could confirm that the gas was present at the scene. Still, it added a new dimension to the mystery, the possibility that the couple's deaths were not the result of malice or intent, but of a deadly and tragic accident brought about by nature itself. Whether the theory was the long sought answer or another dead end, it deepened the sense of unease that had always surrounded the case, leaving investigators and the public alike grappling with the unnerving possibility of an invisible, lethal threat. As the investigation continued to unravel decades later, an astonishing detail surfaced eyewitness accounts from two women who claimed to have seen the couple's final moments. Their testimonies, though fragmentary, offered a chilling glimpse into what might have happened that fateful night. The women had reportedly been near the Lane Cove River during the early hours when Dr. Gilbert Bogle and Margaret Chandler were believed to have died. They described hearing voices before spotting a man and a woman, whom they later believed to be Bogle and Chandler, near the riverbank. According to their account, the couple appeared to be in distress, stumbling and collapsing to the ground almost simultaneously. The witnesses observed no one else in the vicinity, no sounds of an altercation, and no sign of foul play. Instead, the scene unfolded as though the couple had been overcome by something sudden and unseen. The descriptions eerily aligned with the symptoms of hydrogen sulfide poisoning, rapid unconsciousness, and an inability to escape before succumbing to its effects. Despite the potential significance of these accounts, they were not without complications. The witnesses came forward years after the deaths, and their memories had inevitably faded. Details of their testimonies conflicted at times, leaving investigators unsure how much weight to place on their claims. Still, their observations lent credence to the hydrogen sulfide theory, suggesting that the couple's deaths might not have been the result of human intervention. But why would such a deadly incident affect only Bogle and Chandler, while the witnesses remained unharmed? Did the couple wander into a uniquely concentrated pocket of gas, or was there another explanation altogether? The eyewitness accounts, while tantalizing, added yet another layer of mystery to an already confounding case. Whether these women had truly seen the final moments of Bogle and Chandler, or whether their memories had been colored by time and speculation, one thing was certain: the truth of what happened on the banks of the Lane Cove River remained agonizingly out of reach. Among the many theories surrounding the deaths of Dr. Gilbert Bogle and Margaret Chandler, one stood out for its eerie plausibility: the idea that a third party had stumbled upon the bodies and, in an act of compassion or guilt, had arranged the scene to preserve their dignity. The way the bodies were found was undeniably strange. Both Bogle and Chandler were partially undressed, yet their clothing had been carefully placed over them. Bogle's body was draped with a piece of carpet, while Chandler's was covered with cardboard. It was as if someone had taken deliberate steps to shield them from the indignity of their sudden and tragic deaths. But who could this person have been? Some speculated that it might have been a passerby who found the couple and, out of respect, tried to cover them. Yet, if that were true, why didn't they report the discovery? Fear, shame, or a desire to avoid police involvement could explain their silence. Others wondered if the third party might have had a more sinister connection to the deaths. Could it have been someone involved in their demise, trying to obscure evidence or stage the scene to mislead investigators? The deliberate placement of the clothing and coverings suggested a level of care that didn't align with the actions of a panicked stranger. Adding to the intrigue was the fact that the materials used to cover the bodies appeared to have been sourced from the surrounding area. This suggested that whoever did this had spent time at the scene, combing through the environment for items to complete the act. The identity of this potential third party has never been uncovered, and no one has ever come forward to admit involvement. Whether they were a bystander acting out of respect or someone with a more sinister motive, their actions added yet another layer of complexity to an already baffling case. The idea of a cover up raises unsettling questions. Was this person a witness to the couple's final moments? Did they play a role in their deaths? Or were they simply a shadowy figure who happened upon a tragedy and left behind only questions? As investigators examined the scene, the presence of this unknown individual haunted their findings, a silent participant in one of Australia's most perplexing mysteries. From the moment the bodies of Dr. Gilbert Bogle and Margaret Chandler were discovered, the media pounced on the story with ferocity. Sensational headlines blared across newspapers, speculating about scandal, intrigue, and foul play. The illicit nature of the couple's relationship made the case even more tantalizing for the press, as they wove narratives about betrayal, espionage, and secret lives. The intense coverage quickly turned the case into a public spectacle. Every new theory, every fragment of information was dissected and debated in the court of public opinion. The media's focus on the couple's personal lives overshadowed the investigation's scientific and procedural aspects, leading many to see the tragedy through a lens of scandal rather than mystery. For investigators, the scrutiny was relentless. Public pressure mounted with each passing day, pushing authorities to deliver answers in a case where there were none to give. The media's reach extended beyond reporting; it shaped how the case was perceived, influencing theories and steering attention in directions that may have distracted from the truth. But even as the media sensationalized the tragedy, it also cemented the story in the public consciousness, ensuring it would not fade away as just another unsolved case. The Bogle Chandler mystery had become headline news, and with it, a permanent fixture in Australia's cultural memory. When the coroner's inquest convened to examine the deaths, expectations were high. Surely, after months of investigation, there would be answers, some definitive cause of death that could bring the mystery to a close. But instead, the inquest only deepened the enigma. Despite extensive testimony, scientific analysis, and a parade of witnesses, the inquest concluded with an open finding. No cause of death could be determined. Toxicology reports revealed no detectable poisons, and the lack of physical injuries ruled out violence. Theories ranging from natural causes to foul play were discussed, but none could be substantiated with evidence. The coroner's report reflected the frustration of the investigators. The cause of death for Dr. Gilbert Bogle and Mrs. Margaret Chandler remains unknown. It was an unsatisfying conclusion, leaving the case officially unresolved and the door wide open for speculation to continue. For the public, the inquest's failure to provide answers was a bitter disappointment. For the families of the victims, it was a heartbreaking reminder that closure might never come. The Bogle Chandler case didn't just capture the public's attention, it held it, refusing to let go. Across Australia, people followed every twist and turn of the investigation, debating theories and offering their own interpretations of what might have happened. Amateur sleuths pored over newspaper articles and public statements, forming their own conclusions about the couple's deaths. Some latched onto the scandalous aspects of their relationship, while others became fixated on the possibility of espionage or a natural accident. As the years went by, the case became part of Australian folklore, a haunting reminder of a mystery that defied resolution. Stories were passed down, documentaries were produced, and new theories emerged, keeping the memory of Dr. Bogle and Margaret Chandler alive. The public's fascination with the case spoke to its universal appeal. The allure of the unsolved, the quest for answers, and the enduring hope that one day the truth might finally emerge. Even as time marched on, the Bogle Chandler mystery remained a topic of conversation, its shadows lingering in the collective imagination. The Bogle Chandler case has never truly faded from the public or investigative consciousness. Over the decades, it has been revisited by detectives, journalists, and amateur sleuths alike. Each new investigation sought to unravel the threads of this haunting mystery, but the results were always the same: intriguing theories, potential leads, and no definitive answers. Some reinvestigations focused on previously unexplored angles, like environmental factors or overlooked toxicological evidence. Others revisited old testimonies, searching for inconsistencies or buried truths. Documentaries reignited public interest, leading to fresh speculation and the emergence of new theories like the hydrogen sulfide gas hypothesis. Despite these efforts, the case remained elusive. Key evidence had been lost to time, and critical witnesses had either passed away or their memories had faded. The question wasn't just about solving a mystery anymore. It was about whether the truth could even be uncovered after so many years. Each reinvestigation brought hope, only to end in frustration, leaving the mystery of Dr. Gilbert Bogle and Margaret Chandler's deaths as enigmatic as ever. For the families of Dr. Bogle and Margaret Chandler, the decades following their deaths have been a journey of endless pain and unanswered questions. The loss of their loved ones was compounded by the public spectacle that surrounded the case. Dr. Bogle's family faced the shadow of suspicion that fell over him in the wake of his death. Theories ranging from espionage to infidelity cast a pall over his legacy, making it difficult for his loved ones to grieve in peace. Despite his professional achievements, the focus on his personal life overshadowed the man they knew, a brilliant scientist and a devoted father. Margaret Chandler's family endured similar turmoil. The scandal surrounding her relationship with Dr. Bogle and the media's relentless coverage painted her as a tragic figure caught in a web of controversy. Her husband, Jeffrey Chandler, became a figure of curiosity, with many questioning his potential involvement despite a lack of evidence. Both families were left with the burden of not knowing. The lack of closure turned their grief into an open wound, one that even time could not heal. The Bogle Chandler mystery was not just a story for them, it was a daily reality, a reminder of the lives taken too soon and the questions that would forever remain unanswered. The advancements in forensic science have sparked renewed interest in revisiting cold cases, and the Bogle Chandler mystery is no exception. Techniques that were unavailable in the early 1960s, such as DNA analysis and advanced toxicology testing, could potentially shed new light on the case. Some experts have suggested that modern tools could re examine the environmental factors at the Lane Cove River. Could traces of hydrogen sulfide or other toxic gases still be detected in the area? Could advances in chemical analysis identify substances that eluded investigators in the past? But even with these advancements, the passage of time poses significant challenges. The degradation of physical evidence, combined with the lack of preserved samples, makes reanalysis difficult. Critical elements of the case, such as the clothing and items used to cover the bodies, may no longer exist in a state suitable for testing. While modern forensic methods hold promise, they also highlight the limitations of investigating a case decades after the fact. The scientific tools of today may provide insights, but they cannot rewrite the past. The tragedy of Dr. Gilbert Bogle and Margaret Chandler remains a poignant reminder that even with all the advancements in the world, some mysteries resist resolution. Decades after the deaths of Dr. Gilbert Bogle and Margaret Chandler, the case remains an enigma, defined as much by its unanswered questions as by its known facts. What exactly caused their deaths on that quiet New Year's morning? The lack of physical evidence and the failure to identify a toxic substance leaves this question hauntingly unresolved. Was their demise a tragic accident, a calculated act of foul play, or the result of something entirely unknown? Was a third party present at the scene? The careful covering of their bodies suggests human intervention, yet no one has come forward to admit involvement. Were they an innocent bystander moved by compassion, or someone with a more sinister motive? And then there's the most confounding question of all. Why? Even if the cause of death were to be determined, the motive or lack thereof remains as elusive as ever. These lingering mysteries continue to captivate and frustrate investigators and the public alike, keeping the case alive in the collective imagination. As we near the conclusion of this haunting story, let's revisit the leading theories that have shaped the Bogle Chandler mystery. Accidental poisoning. The possibility that the couple ingested or were exposed to a toxic substance seemed plausible early on. However, extensive toxicology testing found no traces of poison, leaving this theory without a solid foundation. Foul play. The idea of jealousy or revenge rooted in their personal relationships remains compelling. Yet the lack of evidence, such as signs of struggle or physical harm, casts doubt on this theory. Espionage. Bogle's work in sensitive research during the Cold War made him a potential target for foreign intelligence. While this angle stoked public intrigue, investigators found no concrete ties to espionage. Hydrogen sulfide gas exposure. The most recent theory, suggesting exposure to toxic gases from the polluted river, explains the sudden and peaceful deaths. But without definitive evidence of the gas's presence at the time, it remains speculative. Each theory answers some questions while raising others, leaving no single explanation fully satisfactory. The Bogle Chandler case endures as one of Australia's most perplexing mysteries. It is a story of love, scandal, and science unfolding against the backdrop of Cold War paranoia and social intrigue. Despite countless investigations, groundbreaking forensic advancements, and the dedication of amateur sleuths, the truth remains tantalizingly out of reach. This case reminds us of the complexities of human relationships, the fragility of life, and the enduring challenge of uncovering the past. Sometimes mysteries don't yield to reason or evidence, they simply persist, etched into history as unresolved enigmas. Now, we turn to you, our viewers. What do you think happened to Dr. Gilbert Bogle and Margaret Chandler? Was it an accident, a crime, or something else entirely? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Could a fresh perspective finally shed light on this haunting case? Let's keep the conversation alive as we honor the memory of two lives lost too soon, still waiting for the truth to be uncovered.